welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest is an Olivier Award-winning actor who is currently starring in Jamie Lloyd's 5-star production of Sunset Boulevard. He has previously been seen in productions of Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, and Come From Away, just to name a few. It's a huge delight to be able to introduce the extraordinary David Thaxton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
So I really wanted to start off by talking about Jamie Lloyd. I think this show again really demonstrates, just what a visionary director he is. When you signed up to do the show, did you have an idea of what sort of direction the show was going to take?
No, to be honest, no, I didn't. It was quite interesting in the audition for it. I've worked with Jamie before, years ago. He directed Passion at the Donmar Warehouse, and I hadn't actually seen him in a really, really long time. So it was great to see him again, and sort of all these years later, we've both changed so much as people and creative people as well. But after the meeting, it was really, really great. But the audition finished, and he said, "Have you got any questions for me?" And I said, "Yeah. What are you going to do with Sunset Boulevard?" Ha ha ha. And he sort of laughed, but didn't say anything. But he had this twinkle in his eye, and I could just tell that he had something extraordinary brewing. And it turns out he really did.
Yeah, it's so radically different to any previous Sunset Boulevard. I think most people already have some idea of what the show and what the story is. Was it scary at all, moving away from audience expectations and choosing to reimagine such a well-known story?
That's a good question. It's no. The answer is no. It's not scary. Not for me. I found it's really exciting, just really, really exciting, really challenging. Yes, but just creatively, just so thrilling. This is exactly the kind of thing I love doing most of all, is things that you can that push your boundaries and push you outside the box a bit. And it can be difficult, this kind of thing, because it's very different to what you would expect of any musical, particularly Sunset Boulevard, something so huge and traditionally lavish and all the rest of it. We're taking a very different approach. But if you have a great director like we have, really great things happen, and I think that's what's happened here. It's about just going with it. It's about when someone like Jamie or any great director like that has these great ideas and these great visions, and they say to you, just go with this, just trust me, and you do, and then you reap these amazing rewards. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, Jamie Lloyd's shows, they are always, so daring. What were those conversations like, in rehearsals, on reinterpreting the material and, bringing cameras and, taking this whole brand new approach?
It's fascinating because in a one sense, a lot of this was preordained and pre-decided. He said that the idea came to him. He sort of woke up one morning after he'd done Evita at Regent's Park. He wanted to do another one of Andrew's shows, and he woke up one morning and wanted to do Sunset Boulevard. And then the next thought came to it was Nicole Scherzinger has to play Norma Desmond. He said he could see everything. He could see it all, see the whole production, see the vision, see everything. So in that sense, that there was that sort of blueprint and framework for what we're doing was already in place. However, you don't just go into, just someone reads out a list of all the things you do, just say go. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks to work all this stuff out. And that was the really amazing thing, is it was quite a long rehearsal process, but to go through the amount of versions and drafts, he calls them, do me a draft of that, show me a draft of that. And you throw it out there and see what happens, and you just keep drafting and keep working on things. So the amount of drafts that we went through to get to where the show is now is hilarious. And just an extraordinary amount of work went into it. So it's a bit of both. It's that the like I say, the framework was there to begin with, but all the creativity and the detail, that all happened in the rehearsal room, and that took a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. In this version as well, your character Max, he's quite an intimidating presence, much more so than previous incarnations too. What was it about Max that drew you to him as an actor too?
Well, to answer, I mean, to be really honest, it's just Sunset Boulevard was always one of my favourite shows. So I've always loved the show, and I'd always imagined that one day I'd play Joe Gillis, but it never ever quite worked out. And so when this audition came through, I thought it sort of for Max. I thought, oh, that's it. That's really interesting because I thought I'd be on the young side for it. But then you see the way it's cast and the way it's been reimagined, then it all makes a lot of sense. And I got thinking about Max, and there's a lot going on. He's a very interesting person with a very interesting history. But he's made some very interesting choices in his life to end up where he is doing what he's doing, and that's so interesting as an actor to be able to delve into all that stuff. And I don't know whether we really can answer all these questions. I don't think you can ever answer all the questions about any character you play, but that's what makes things so interesting, and what makes you able to do a long run of a musical. I mean, this isn't particularly long, but still, to be able to explore those depths and try and answer all the questions, even though you can't, is what keeps you going, and it's really exciting. And I think Max has a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, and also, I think it's also really interesting as well. With the role of Norma Desmond, it's also been shared between Nicole Scherzinger and Rachel Tucker too. How has it been, adapting, your performance, depending on which actress is performing as Norma? Do you feel like, your Max changes depending on who's on?
The way the show is directed and the way we're doing things, it does enable you to get into your groove and your own individual sort of tracks. And yes, other people come and go around you as you're moving along on your tracks, but because Max is a quite a solitary character, he kind of has his own thing going on. The differences between actors being on isn't, I think, for me particularly huge. You'd have to ask Tom Francis. I think that would probably be, obviously, for Joe, it would be a very different thing altogether because Rachel plays the role entirely differently to Nicole. So, but for me, it's I can focus on Norma and what she means to Max, and that's pretty consistent, I think, between both of them.
Yeah, I mean, you've done a number of Andrew Lloyd Webber shows as well in the past. You've done, Phantom, Love Never Dies, Jesus Christ Superstar. Were you always interested in performing Andrew's work?
Yeah, I mean, I was a teenager in the mid-90s, so it sort of peak Andrew Lloyd Webber. And if you were young and impressionable and into musical theatre, and Andrew was everywhere, so yeah, of course, it's his output and his work suits one of the things I can do very well, and I think it's it's definitely something that I've always been sort of connected to. That great tradition of musical theatre, that period in the sort of late 80s, maybe it's Phantom onwards through to Sunset Boulevard, I guess, and then things sort of changed, don't they? Things go in cycles and stuff, but that was very much my wheelhouse growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen a number of his shows, returning to the West End lately too, with Aspects of Love, Love Never Dies was in concert recently. Now we've got Sunset Boulevard. Phantom is in its 37th year, and, Starlight Express is coming back next year. Why do you think his musicals, have been able to sustain their popularity for so long?
Well, he can write a tune, can't he? Like he can write an amazing tune, and all these shows are. That's a hell of a broad scope of work. If you're thinking, if you go from Jesus Christ Superstar, Sunset Boulevard, Starlight Express, Phantom of the Opera, these are all very, very, very different aspects of love. These are incredibly different shows with different styles and different output. It's fascinating. I think a really great example of that is within Phantom. It's something no one ever talks about, but I realised when I was doing it is that there are 3 operas in that show within one show. So he's written 3 operas and 3 made-up operas in 3 different musical styles. You've got the Hannibal, so sort of the great traditional grand classic opera. You've got Il Muto, which is that Renaissance Baroque style, and you've got Phantom's Opera Don Juan Triumphant, which is this modern, really out there opera. And to write 3, well, obviously they're not full operas, we don't see the whole thing, but to write 3 operatic scores in 3 different musical styles within one show is pretty cool, I think, and that's just sort of emblematic of what he has done as a composer over the years.
Yeah, I mean, you've had, one of the most extraordinary careers. You've done, both, the limited engagements like Sunset Boulevard, She Loves Me, Candide, but you've also, been in and out of the long-running shows like Les Mis and Phantom. Did you always see yourself as an actor who would be able to, do a bit of everything? And were you ever worried about being pigeonholed too?
Um, I think we all like to see ourselves as someone who can do a bit of everything. I mean, but also, so little of it is in your control as an actor. I stand by this, that the only bit of power you have as an actor is the ability to say no to something. Most of the time, it's just, an audition has come through for this thing that someone is putting on, and you may get an audition for it, and then you may get a recall, and then you may get in the show, or you probably won't. So there's so little that you can control. But yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's definitely a very different thing to doing a limited run like She Loves Me or Passion or something like that, or this, or Sunset Boulevard was on for 3 months, is a different thing altogether to doing a year in Les Mis, and then halfway through that year they offer you another year and you decide to do 2 years. And when I first got into Les Mis, it was 2005. It was the first big job I'd done, and up until then I'd only ever done Amdram and things like that, where your show's on for a week and you'll go for a Chinese meal on Tuesday and you go for an Indian on Wednesday, and you do all this stuff, and you have all this societal, familial stuff that comes with Amdram. And then so the idea that I'd be in my third week of being in a show was mind blowing. And then I thought, hang on, you're going to be in this in 3 months, and in 8 months' time, you're still going to be doing this. And that was a real eye opener. It's a different art form almost, I think, being in a year's contract or something, because you are doing the same thing 8 times a week for a year. You get holidays, obviously, but the ability there, or the technique there, is to keep it fresh and to keep it exciting for you as a performer. So you have to find something new in it that keeps you going, because the people who came to see your first night paid the same amount of money as the people who came to see your 378th night. So you have a duty to the piece, you have a duty to the audience, you have a duty to yourself to keep these things interesting. And I find that very interesting. It's a very interesting thing to do with the long runner. Yeah. And I enjoy. I've always really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed the craft of keeping things interesting, and I enjoyed the craft of finding new stuff. I've really always enjoyed that in the past.
Yeah. Do you find it, more challenging, approaching, a new production, approaching a character as afresh, or, going into, something which has been long running and, following a mold almost? So it's again, they're two very different things. Like, so take Les Mis, for example, that's these days, well, certainly in the original production, you had quite a lot of scope for your own interpretation. I think, the first time I played, John Caird did all the rehearsals and came and put the whole show in. So you had the original director is directing you. So there was a lot of scope to mix things up. That's very exciting. That rarely happens. So that was very, very, very cool. But even when you don't have that kind of thing going on, there still is some scope for you to find your own thing. But obviously you can't say, I'd rather stand over there to sing Stars. That doesn't work like that. Everything's set and has been teched and has been running that way since 1985. So that is one thing. It is an entirely different thing to do a new production or a revival or something where you're making something from scratch. And that is that's the sort of the holy grail for actors, I think. At least for me anyway. That's the thing I love most, is getting in a room with other people, working something out, making something happen, trying ideas, trying stuff. That doesn't work. That does work. Taking it, building it, layering it all up, which is something we've done to the nth degree on Sunset Boulevard. I cannot tell you. It looks very, obviously it's very, very stylized and very structurally simplistic, set wise and all of that. But I cannot tell you the amount of detail and the amount of just the layers that have gone into it. So that's particularly exciting. The most exciting thing about that is that you create it, you make it, and you put it out there for people to consume. And it's like, you say, here is the thing I've made. And, I love that so much. I do that with my band. Like, it's so exciting as, here's a load of songs that we've written and recorded about stuff that we think and feel. There you go, consume it. And, you don't get caught up in what people think of it. You can't obsess about that kind of thing.
because that way madness lies, you'll never, in a sense, it sort of doesn't matter what people think. Obviously it does, but it kind of, you can't allow it to, because you'll lose it. So it's about putting it out there and making something, putting it out there and doing something new and finding new aspects and new things. That's really, really, really thrilling.
Yeah, yeah. Do you reckon we'll ever see, a radically reimagined Les Mis or Phantom too?
Well, I mean, I don't know whether you'd have to call up. You have to talk to James Powell and Lawrence Connor and see whether they think that the new production is radically reimagined or not. I don't know. In terms of taking the source material and doing something with it, like we've done with Sunset Boulevard, possibly, but not for a while. I don't think, because those shows have been running for 30 whatever years for a reason, and that reason is they're bloody brilliant. And Phantom of the Opera is a fantastic production. It's a fantastic production. They're not there because people have to go and see it. They're not museum pieces. They're vibrant and alive and current and thrilling and exciting, and they work. So that's they're there for a reason, and that reason is that they're fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you returned to Les Mis, fairly recently, several years after you last did Javert. The show obviously went through a bit of a revamp, as you say, in 2019. Did it feel strange going back into a role on the show, which you had worked on, so extensively previously?
Yeah, it did with the new production. Yeah, because the old production, I could have played. I honestly think I could have given any role in that old production a go and done a decent job, because I just knew it so well. And so the new production, while also the music's all the same, the new production was a bit weird, because all of my muscle memory was there but wasn't applicable anymore. So it was really cool to have to relearn the show and find new things and reacquaint myself with the character particularly, which was great. And I think the last time I did it, I was 40. And it's the first time I felt the right age to do it. Felt really right to be able to bring all my life experience and the weight that you get with age. You can't fake age. In the same way that you can't fake youth. Like I'm seeing Spring Awakening all those years ago. It was extraordinary just seeing all these 17-year-olds on the stage. It's just like, you can't act young. You either are or you aren't. So that was very cool to be able to like approach that role and like really attack it and do it. Not do it properly, because that would insinuate that the time before I wasn't doing it properly, but it was the right fit this time. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah. You've been working, in theatre, for, about 20 years now. How much would you say the industry and the landscape has changed during that time too?
Loads. I mean, the West End that I came to when I was 23, 2005, I got to say it was 23. It's a very different place to how it is now. Like so much has changed. There's been so many sort of societal and huge shifts in the world. So much has happened that has knock-on effects to everything in life, but particularly from the theatre point of view, it's changed stuff. But it's I don't know, I think it's fantastic that the thing that seems to be still just as prevalent is that people are out there and making bold choices and trying to do exciting things and try to push boundaries. And so you can have shows like, I think that's what we're doing with Sunset Boulevard. You have Cabaret, that was it's an extraordinary piece of art, not just theatre. And but then you've got your Hamiltons, which is for my money the greatest show ever written. And these things are just really thrilling and really, 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 it's an exciting time to be a part of it all. It really, really is. And I feel very fortunate to be a small dot on this huge canvas of creativity. It's great. It's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say it takes now, to make it in the industry and to become a star too?
Oh my God, that's a really interesting question, because that's an amazing question. One thing that there's some aspects of it you can't do anything about. You either have this thing or you don't. You have star quality or you don't. And I'd like Tom Francis is a perfect example of this. I didn't know Tom before this. I hadn't seen Anne Juliet. but he's young, and you see him on that stage, and there's one particular moment I remember watching in rehearsals, and he turns, looks at the camera, and delivers this line. I thought to myself, "Oh God, you're going to be famous. He's just has this quality, this thing that you can't really describe it. It's there." But then he can marry that, which he is doing, and then just have this inside him. You marry that with a work ethic, and you it's not enough just to be good. It's not enough to know you can sing and act. It's not enough. You've got to work hard. And that's the amazing thing working with Nicole. Actually, she's very inspirational in that way. I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who's so driven and works so hard as she does. And I say there's always something you can take from every job you do. There's always something to learn from the actors you work with, and that's definitely something I've learned from her. It's just her drive is second to none, and her focus, and just it's really inspirational.
Yeah. Are there? Yeah, you mentioned Tom Francis already. But yeah, are there any other young performers working today that you see as being part of that next generation of West End greats?
Well, shout out to Grace Hodgett Young as well, who plays Betty in the show. This is her first job, not just it's her professional debut, and she's got such a calm head on her shoulders. It's absolutely amazing to watch. Tom is someone who completely personifies this thing that you're talking about. But I found when I did Les Mis last, the cast I was working with, they're all majority pretty young, and their focus and their drive and their commitment was amazing, just amazing. They're just out there, they're making choices, they're giving you stuff to work with, they just put it out there, and they're so open, and they're so excited to learn, and they take notes amazingly, and it's so great to work with people like that. So that's what I really found that with the cast of Les Mis, and I find that with people like Tom and Grace. It's just they're just I think that's indicative of what the youngsters these days are doing. They know their worth as well, which is amazing. They know their worth, and they and not in a sort of egotistical way. They just can appreciate their value and what they bring to things, and it's fascinating. One of the things we talk about quite a lot at work with Jamie and Tom, because Jamie directed Passion at the Donmar Warehouse that I was 27, and that has so many similarities to Sunset Boulevard as a piece. There's this complicated music love triangle at the center of it, this young man involved with two women, one of whom's older and weird, for want of a better word, and the story is very much centered around him, and it's all the events of both narratives are the events that happen to that man at the center of the story. And so for me to play Giorgio back then, and for Tom to play Joe now, it's there's so many parallels. It's been amazing to sort of be there and watch Tom deal with it, and be able to sort of help him out whenever he needs to. And also Jamie directed both, obviously, which lends a really interesting sort of frisson to things. But he handles it so well. Like one of the many things I think I've thought about watching him is, God, you are handling this better than I handled that, without question. And I think that's just what the security that they have, the new generation. They know their worth. It's really great.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting to hear that. I know that you've also been, very passionate about keeping theatre accessible, and keeping theatre training accessible as well. With year one workshops to help further this as well. With ticket prices, however, on the rise, though, do you think there's still an element of elitism in theatre too?
For sure, yeah. But also, you have great, the Jamie Lloyd Company, for example, are brilliant at this. There's always accessible tickets for key workers and young people, and they do rush tickets, and they do lottery, and there's a lot of ways that you could come and see Sunset Boulevard or Cyrano de Bergerac or any of that stuff. So producers and companies are hot on that. And there's no getting around it. £233 or whatever it is for the top class ticket is mad. It's a lot of money. But yeah, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. But also, if we said about everything's going to be football tickets are 20 quid, then no one could afford to put any theatre on. It doesn't work like that. You know, things have to be paid for. Things have to exist. I think it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is, the biggest misconception about being a West End actor?
Um, that's a great question. The biggest misconception about being a West End actor, that it's all glamour, that it's all post-show drinks at Joe Allen with Christopher Biggins and Cat Deeley, like, because it isn't. I think that, yeah, okay, that's a good way of answering that. Is that people? And you ask any actor. This is just any actor will say that people, your family particularly, people you know, will often like at Christmas or give us a song or go on, yeah, and you'd be like, yeah, all right, I'll give you a song if you do my tax return, because why don't you do a bit of chartered surveying? People tend to sort of, I don't think people quite get that it's a job. It's a job that we love, and the job that when we do it, we're very fortunate to do it. But it is a job. It's something that people have literally trained many years to do. Like people train many years to be a vet, and people train many years to be an actor, and it's work, and it's important, and it matters. And I think there can be a sort of, people don't quite get that, and people feel you must be out all the time. It's just great fun. And you must be absolutely minted as well. It doesn't work like that at all. Oh my God. So no. Yeah, it's not all like glamorous lifestyle, rich and famous. It can be an absolute nightmare, because like I say, you have no control. You have such little control over anything. So you have to, when opportunities come along and it happens to land your way, then fantastic. But you've got to be in control of yourself and your emotions and your thoughts and everything when they don't come your way, because they don't come your way most of the time.
Mm. Very well said. It's been so interesting talking to you. Just as a last question, what do you most want to be remembered for?
Oh my God. Oh man alive, what would I like to be remembered for? Well, I'd like to be, I think I artistically, I guess, is what you're getting at. So I thought about this, like, as you get older, you turn 40, I've had a baby recently, and all this sort of life stuff happens. You can't help but think about things. You think, what's the point of it all? And I think creatively, if you can just leave something behind, that, be that an album you've made, or a performance you've given, or something where someone saw you or listened to something, or whatever, where you've connected to someone, even if it's just one person, who's gone, oh my God, wow. Like, I've had these, I can remember these vividly remember these performances. Zubin Zala in Jesus Christ Superstar, when I see him in 1997. That Bertie Cavell in Matilda, extraordinary, like an unreal performance. Mark Rylance in Jerusalem, saw that both times. These things where you see this stuff and you just go, that is unreal. Alan Cumming in Cabaret in New York in 2014. Oh my God. Just extraordinary stuff. And if you can, if you can make one person feel like that, then that's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's somewhere out there who's seen something I've done, or listened to one of our albums and gone, oh, that's for me. That's a bit of me.
Yeah, I think you've definitely done that for some people. But yeah, David Thaxton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.